and you can all hear me. Please put your hand up if you can't hear me. I apologize in advance. I am not really at my best today. I'm feeling a little bit subdued. Also, my eye is like, I promise I've not been in a fight yet. There's something else that's getting to me. Also, Nai, who was just up here before me, he said at some point that, you know, you can just ask ChatGPT who has published most papers on AI in game development. Did anyone do that? No? Yeah, it said it was me. How did this happen? How did I get here? What? So who am I? I am from Malmö, Sweden, where I grew up, and I went to high school, and I finished high school, even though I almost failed maths. I hated maths, and I thought it was terrible. I wanted nothing to do with it ever again. So I decided that I would understand the mind. I would understand what is intelligence, what is consciousness. So I started studying philosophy, as you do, and psychology. Now, I mean, philosophy is, I love philosophy, but it's very, 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 very slow. Someone comes up with a brilliant thing like once every 100 years, and I was too impatient for that. And psychology is a good idea, but it doesn't work. I'm sorry. I'm gonna get into a fight today. Maybe my other, the tools are not good enough, you know. So I needed to understand the mind to be able to understand. I need to build minds to understand them. And even though I discovered that, even though I still sucked at maths, I still do. I still don't know very much at all. I had taught myself programming and realized that programming had nothing to do with math. So I gradually segued into computer science. Isn't it great? I'm making so many enemies already. I'm like, why am I in this mood today? I'm gonna get into many fights. So I wanted to do biologically inspired artificial intelligence. I went to England, to University of Sussex, where I got all hooked on like evolving neural networks for controlling robots. And then I went to University of Essex for my PhD, so I just changed sex. And there I discovered that I didn't have the patience for robots either, because robots are really slow and they break down all the time and look like, depending on what time of day you have different light coming in through the windows, so the sensors don't work, or, oh no, the tires are hot, so the robot's performing differently. And I wasn't interested in all that. I'm not really interested in the physical world. Or math. So I sort of realized I could do the same thing in video games. And back then in 2004 and 2005, I was like, what if I can evolve neural networks to play racing games? So I did. And it was fun. I went to conferences and people were like, oh, that's cool research you're doing there. That's really fun, you know. Oh, you get a paper out of it, nice. But where's your real research? This is my real research. Oh, and they look at me like, man, this guy is not going to have a career. Basically, I worked for a bit in Lugano in Switzerland with Julian Schmidhuber, who, anyone know of Julian Schmidhuber? He's the closest I've been to working with someone who's actually a genius. And here I'm implicitly insulting everyone else I worked with, sorry. But it's, the guy is fantastic. He also has ego the size of the Hindenburg. And causes, he's famous and maybe infamous. I try to learn the right things for him, not go around and pick fights with people. So somewhere around there, I realized that you can use AI to play games, and that's interesting, and that's great for testing AI methods. How about flipping it around and using AI to improve the games? Can you use AI to do game design, generate levels, generate other content, generate quests, maybe the game rules themselves? And I did some early papers back when nobody thought this was a reasonable thing to do. I remember in 2008, one of the papers that kind of founded a field, kind of. I had like the response like, "Oh, is this a proof of concept paper?" Yes. What's the concept? So that was fun. Yeah, so I do AI for game playing, and I do AI for games and games for AI. And I also started a startup on game playing and testing, which is going all right, and another one on trading, like stocks and crypto and stuff, which is basically just game playing anyway, and that's going better. Um, don't, I love games, but the game industry, no. So, okay, what am I not talking about? This talk is not about production pipelines. This is not about like whether to use stable diffusion to generate your assets or whatnot. And it's not about intellectual property rights and everything like this. This is a big can of worms. These are somewhat tasty worms, but we're going to avoid them today. We're going to talk about completely different things. I'm also interestingly not going to talk that much about my own research. Almost not at all. I'm going to talk about other things. Mostly this is one long argument, and I want your feedback. And I also want you, because I have fewer slides than usual today, please feel free to just interrupt me at any point, and argue back at me, so on. My friend Tommy Thompson, anyone follow or have you seen the AI in Games YouTube channel? Tommy and I, we met back in 2007 or something, and then we've taken slightly different paths. He's the guy on YouTube. If you find someone talking about AI in games with a strong Scottish accent, it's him. He's the one. That's not a strong Scottish accent. If you ask him how he actually speaks to his old friends where he grew up with, he will speak a kind of English that you will not understand. But yeah, his videos are great, and he runs other conferences and so on. This is his, it's a little bit out of date, the 2024 edition of How Artificial Intelligence is Used in Video Games. So looking at AI for the player experience versus AI for game production. I think very many talks today are like here. Hey, art pipelines, animation, quality assurance. The company I founded is kind of here. And then basically AI that plays, AI that creates, AI that models. I've done a ton of work in the AI that creates sort of genre, procedural content generation, procedural rule generation, whatever. I've also done a decent amount of work in AI that plays, and a little bit in AI that models. But I just wanted to orient you. When you come to a place like this and you talk about AI in games, people are like, oh, here is where it's at. If you come to an academic venue, like here is where it's at, they will like, oh, it's AI for playing games, and they use it to test various methods. But the actual field is pretty wide. There's a lot of different things. Okay, so we're gonna stay mostly up here, kind of, with some exceptions to come later. Okay, statement number one. Games were designed around the lack of AI. The reason that most games do not feature runtime AI in any kind of interesting manner is that they build on design conventions that date back to when there was no AI that we could practically use. Yeah, the concept of frozen accident is that someone shows something and then it basically stay there. There's this long story about how the dimensions of the Roman chariots basically influenced basically the width of European roads, which influenced the original design of the first railroads, which are 1,435 millimeters almost everywhere in the world. And that in turn influenced the Apollo rocket and so on. It's a frozen design accident. It could have been something else, and it's just like, it keeps influencing history. But the games we play, The games we play today they build on such a history of game design and so many conventions that were done that people came up with back in the 80s and 90s. So for people who are less old than me, honestly, this room is kind of interesting because it's a pretty wide spread of ages. I am so used to these days going in and being the oldest person in the room. I'm 46. It's weird, but yeah. Um, this is what a computer used to look like. This is a PC 286 that was like state of the art in 1987, 88, and this is the original Nintendo Entertainment System. This is what a game console used to look like. This one had 640 kilo of memory, but basically not much of a graphics card at all. You basically had to torture it to get graphics out of it. And this thing had like, how much RAM did an NES have? Like 4K memory or something? 4K, yeah. And there we go. and a 1 megahertz Z80 processor, or Z80 compatible, I think. And this one had like maybe 16 megahertz or something. Or maybe the first was 10. I don't know. But anyway, this is I don't know. This computer has 96 gigs of RAM, which is kind of a bit much, but commonly you have 1632. So basically, what could you do AI-wise? And this is like when we came up with all these conventions, 80s and 90s. Sure, there are new game genres now. There are MOBAs. There are like dating simulators. There are like whatever do you play. But they grow out of other game genres, and then you have all these different conventions that people have come to expect, and this is limiting us from coming up with interesting AI methods or designing around AI in gameplay. This is a behavior tree. Behavior trees are still what's driving non-player character tactics and movements in, I would say, most games. Someone feel free to correct me if I'm wrong. It's some version of behavior trees you see everywhere. It is very, very limiting in terms of how they can act. I mean, but yeah, you have a behavior tree, and then you also have some pathfinding and a little bit of movement, smoothing, and stuff like this. Because this goes all the way back to like before the behavior trees were finite state machines, and people are used to this. People implicitly think about this. Let's say you play Assassin's Creed, to take like an extremely popular game series. And it builds on like the design conventions around sneaking games, which date back to the original Thief from 1990 something, which was a finite state machine plus sensors built in. And if you're sneaking in a game, you expect these things. You expect that there's a bunch of different states that the NPCs can be in. And you expect to be able to learn those, to model this implicitly, and plan around that. And if you are going to introduce something completely different, say you're gonna put in a deep neural network there to control how the guards act, wow, you're sort of dragging the players out of their comfort zone. This is the argument that people told me, like, when I first went out to like say 2005, 2006, I started talking to game developers coming as I was then a PhD student, and I was like, I have these cool evolved neural networks that you can use in your game. And they were like, we don't need that. We know how to do NPCs. This is how you do NPCs. And now 20 years later, I'm like, I have to admit that they were kind of right. But that's a sad thing, right? Shouldn't we be able to do better? How do we do better? And just throwing out like 45 years of game design history or video game design history is not an option. We can't. We have to figure out how to deal with a historic baggage of designing around the lack of AI. This is not the pinnacle of dialogue. This is a dialogue tree, and I mean, you play any RPGs or any game with like any game with like where you talk to people, you're going to have dialogue trees. You expect it to be that way. You know that if there was some choice in the dialogue you didn't take, you can basically quit the conversation, go back to the conversation, ask the same thing again, and basically choose another dialogue option. That's how you expect an NPC to behave. And that's where you have this thing. And right now, like, thousands of people around the world are like banging their head against, how the hell do I put a large language model in here instead of a dialogue tree? We're going to get back to that a little bit later, but it's very hard because people don't expect it, and a bunch of other things. So let's take a slightly more positive take on things. Sorry, this is I'm coming here and being very negative. I'm picking fights. But let's take a positive spin on things. Advances in AI and technology, game technology, AI widely considered, have driven advances in game design. There are a bunch of things that came out of it. And some of them became extremely influential, some of them not so much. And it's important to remember that AI is a very broad term. Today, people are like, oh, an AI, that's a large language model. And I feel like, going there and being like, putting my old person hat on and saying like, no, large language models are not real AI. I'm not doing that. Okay, here's the deal. Large language models are AI, but so are probabilistic networks, graphs, pathfinding, evolutionary computation, a lot of other things, right? So pathfinding. You can also argue with this. I would think that Pac-Man was the game that popularized pathfinding as a kind of load-bearing element in game design. Because the pathfinding in Pac-Man wasn't very advanced, but it was there. And you, as a player in Pac-Man, and even more in Miss Pac-Man, which is non-deterministic, unlike Pac-Man, which is deterministic, are trying to outsmart these ghosts, and you are doing it by basically trying to figure out what these movements you make, how will they affect how they move around. This is how you get good at Pac-Man. And of course, pathfinding is everywhere. Like, almost every game you can imagine which features some kind of non-player characters has pathfinding. And these days you have nav meshes and all kinds of like variations of A*, but basically it's the same thing. Planning. Fear. How many of you played Fear? Yeah, first encounter Assault Recon. I like that I'm speaking to this old audience here. Nice. Like I was just like talking about these things to a bunch of like, undergrads the other day, and she's like, I don't know, the earliest game I played was Fortnite. But again, you need to know your history because design conventions go way back and they affect us so much. Fear was kind of groundbreaking in the way how the NPCs behaved. They were using something called goal order action planning, which was essentially pathfinding in the state space. And the state space is a much abstracted version of the physical space in a sense. And they're also talking to you. They're like communicating their intentions. You kind of listen in to these kind of enemies' radio. I forgot what it's actually about, Fear. There's some kind of paranormal activity and you're going in there and shooting everybody. But it's kind of okay because the other people are undead or something. I don't know. I forget. But it's a good game. And they're like, oh, I see he's in the kitchen. Okay, you keep him pinned down. I'm gonna flank him. And I'm like, aha, he's planning to flank me. Okay, right. So it's really effective. Another game that used this to basically the same algorithm essentially to great effect is Shadow of Mordor. Who played it? Oh, good, many people. Cool game, right? So there's a lot of, you encounter the same kind of enemies and so on, and it's not like random. They are planning. They have a plan on you, right? It's very cool. Procedural content generation. There's like, I've done a ton of work in this, but basically this goes way back. So Rogue a game from the 1980s, which is, or like from 1980 actually, exactly. Michael Toy and Glenn Wickman were students at the University of California, Santa Cruz, and they wanted to play Dungeons and Dragons. But they didn't want to have to encode the adventures and the sort of maps themselves. And they didn't have enough disk space on the UC Santa Cruz mainframe anyway. So they had to generate it. They had to come up with a generator that generated new dungeons every time you played it. And it's kind of rough because like you may meet like enemies you absolutely can't face early on. It has this great, fantastic 1980s mainframe graphics, all text. But Rogue, of course, became extremely influential. There's a whole genre called roguelikes, and lately we've seen how more and more games have roguelike elements. Hades 2, which, who has played Hades 2? Or Hades? You really should if you haven't, it's so good. It's a design innovation here, is how they, every time you play it, all the levels you play are completely new, but they still manage to sort of combine this with like sort of top tier storytelling, which is fantastic. But you see this in so many different games, like Bloodborne had some kind of roguelike elements in these challenge dungeons, and you know, a lot of different ones. Also like Civilization and other kind of strategy games, also roguelikes. You need to generate a world every time. Or more PCG. Elite is a game that came out in 1984, where you fly around in a sort of 3D world, and you fly between star systems, you dock with space stations, you trade various commodities, you fulfill missions, you have fights with the space police and space pirates and so on. And there's like 4,096 star systems in the standard version, and it fit in memory on a Commodore 64, which had 64,000 bytes memory. This computer here has really more than 1 million times as much memory. And how did that work? Well, they used different parts of the compiled code as random number seeds, and then they generated the star systems every time you came there. Now, you may think that, well, okay, my computer now has 1 million times as much memory. We don't need this anymore. We do, because however fancy your computer is, the real world is always larger and has more detail than you could ever fit in memory. So you're going to need to generate something. So No Man's Sky is one nice example of, like, you know, the spiritual successors of Elite here. Other things, Minecraft heavily relies on procedural content generation. This idea that you could generate worlds in different ways. And I haven't even gone into the algorithmics behind it. Minecraft uses Perly noise a bit, and a whole bunch of other things on top of that to generate the worlds. Spelunky, extremely influential. Who has played Spelunky? Oh, a few. It's good. I'm not going to ask who has played Minecraft. If you never played Minecraft, you're sort of sorry, you're out of here, you know. Yeah. I was once supposed to write a paper with Marcus Persson, aka Notch, who created Minecraft. That was before Minecraft was public. But then he stopped responding to me, even though I wrote him in Swedish. So I took him off the paper. Maybe that was a good thing. Maybe not. I don't know. This is things you know. Evolutionary algorithms. It's good to point out that Spelunky, for example, uses an entirely different set of methods behind the scene to do its level generation. It uses a bunch of tiles that it draws from, and then basically uses pathfinding to trace a path, and then selects room templates to sort of fit with the path it draws, and then randomly populates them. So there's a lot of depth, there's a lot of algorithmic depth to, or like there's a lot of algorithmic width to procedural content generation. There's so many different methods. Evolutionary algorithms. Creatures, it's a very strange little game. Who has ever heard of it? A few. Yeah. It's a game that came out in '96. There were a couple of successors. It's like 2D thing where you basically, I would say it's kind of Sims-like in a sense that you are watching these little creatures go about and you affect the world and you breed them with each other. So basically then they lay eggs and then you sort of new creatures come out of that, and the evolution of new creatures is kind of the main thing in the game. Galactic Arms Race, putting in here, even though it's an academic prototype, all the weapons in this game, which is a multiplayer space shooter, are generated through a global evolutionary algorithm, and basically the ones that are popular get to have kids, and they combine with other weapons, and then and then their offspring are left out in space for players to find, which is a cool game design idea. Black and White. It's a famous game for games and AI. Who's played it? Or some version of it? There was a game Black and White 2 as well. Not only because Demis Hassabis, who later on went on to co-found DeepMind, was working on it, but also because it, mainly because it came up with a new kind of design idea for how to interact with AI. It had all these, it's basically a god game in the style of Populous. You have to control this world with where various villagers live in the villages and go around their lives, and they fight and they farm and stuff like this. But to your help, you have these giant creatures, and they are trying to do as you do. You can demonstrate to them what you want to do, like, hey, help the villagers do this. And then they may do something else, and maybe they eat the village instead. And then you can punish them, or you can reward them when they do the right thing. So basically, raising your companion creature is a key gameplay element. And they actually use some kind of decently complex machine learning behind the scene for doing this. What is really fascinating is this game came out like 25 years ago, and I have not seen anyone, apart from and it was moderately successful even, but I've not seen anyone really sort of picking up the baton and doing the next game that works like this, which is really fascinating. One game series that did become extremely popular is the Sim series. According to some measure, it's like the series that sold most games in the world or something. The Sim series, in the different Sims, the AI systems differ quite a bit, but basically, at least the most recent ones are based on utility-based AI. So you have pathfinding, where these the various Sims are trying to figure out how to get around, and they have needs. So basically they have like different, like, this is how hungry I am, this is how horny I am, or whatever. It's probably not called hornies, but whatever. And then the various things here radiate, like, hey, this sink here radiates that it can fulfill your hygiene needs, and you can go there. And the TV radiates that it can fulfill your fun need, whether that's true or not, I don't know. But, and then they select based on their state what they go to and what they try to do. Another kind of like, this is also interesting because it's a series of somewhat successful games, Scribblenauts. Who has played one Scribblenauts game at least? Okay, many of us, like half of you or something. I think they're marvelous. These are games where you basically type in anything. And you basically, I want like a zombie chicken, and a zombie chicken pops up. Okay, and then you add like a zombie hunter, and the zombie chicken runs from it because it knows it should run from the zombie hunter. And then you come up with garlic and throw at it, and so on. So it is the various versions of Scribblenauts. They have gameplay. You need to basically solve various tasks and so on, but it really works best as It really works best as a sandbox. You can do the most silly things in there. It's very fun. I don't know how many people I've heard saying, "Oh, I want to make AI scribble notes," and what they mean is kind of LLM-driven scribble notes. Two observations. A, this is already AI. This uses ontologies. This is classic good old-fashioned AI, and it's a very good example of it. But I've never seen anyone replicate this really, which is a shame. I heard a talk from Liz England, who was the lead designer, and she talked about how she basically sat down and hand coded this giant ontology, and it works. B, I have not seen anyone really any convincing example of LLM-driven scribble notes, although someone should do it. Why haven't you done it yet? Right. This brings us to where are all the AI-powered games? And I mean modern AI, generative AI, like LLMs, VLMs, diffusion models, deep learning in general, Monte Carlo tree search, reinforcement learning, things that weren't really on anyone's radar 10 years ago, or 15 years ago, something like this. Where are they? Why haven't people made them? If people are like going here and saying, "Oh my God, the AI can do my job, the AI can design my games," like, well, okay, so fight back. Use the AI to design new games around it. But people are like, weirdly not doing it. So now let's try to address the core question: why? There are three issues: compute, memory, and design. The first two issues are serious, but the third one is where the real problem. So compute and memory, like say you want to use like a kind of non-trivial LLM. Well, first of all, you don't have enough compute to run it. Maybe you have a GPU, but the problem is you're running a game and the GPU is busy doing graphics. Whoever heard of this, doing the GPU for graphics? Weird, but that's how it is. While it could be multiplying matrices for your deep neural networks. Memory, they don't have enough memory. This is a really big one. Now you could basically say that, and it's not getting better with the memory prices right now, but really you need to I don't know, you can get decent get decent LLMs doing decent stuff on 32 gigs, but yeah, not on like whatever 6 gigs or whatever it's in a PlayStation 5. I don't know, 8 maybe. Now you can say, well, we can just send a request to a server somewhere that does all the compute for us. The problem is that you don't have the economics for that. Economics in most games are not like that. No one wants to play a game where you have to pay by the token. And if you play a game up front, where you basically you buy it for like $50, and maybe 20 of those dollars eventually can be used by the game development studio. They if the game is good, then you're going to use them up very soon. So it gives you completely perverse incentives. Don't make a good game that people keeps playing, because then you'll go bankrupt. Yeah, so it really needs to happen on device. And we're not quite there yet. But the big problem is design. So, I don't know. I guess all of you know about Skyrim. I had a memorable time. I think was it was it came out at the end of 2011, I think. And I remember sometime like Christmas 2011 going on to New Year's 2012. 11, yeah, it's a good name. It's a good. I was so anxious for it to play it, so I bought one copy for myself and one copy for my friend who didn't have the money to play it. So, and then I basically unplugged the internet and basically locked myself in over Christmas. And I mean, I did go and celebrate Christmas with family and stuff like this, but yeah, you get lost in this world. It's amazing. Amazing design achievement with all warts and all, and endless amount of people are like, why don't you just put LLMs in these NPCs? And people have tried this. There are mods for this. It's terrible. It ruins the game because it's not designed for it. Because the NPCs get really boring. Because the NPCs are because it's slow and everything, but also because like they don't fulfill their function of telling you what they should be telling you. Instead of going up to an NPC and you'll get the information you need, you're like stuck in this like small talk hell. And why are you there, you know? So there's a bunch of people trying to do like various interesting stuff. We'll start with the really weird stuff. Yeah, yeah. You know about how all these let's see here. You know how AI alignment and basically, why am I not able to do this? Where is the? Oh, there we go. You know how everybody talks about like the LLM should be helpful assistance and safe and conform to your wishes, do as you say, and like, you know, just try to help you. This game is basically, what if not that?
I can't wait for our journey ahead. I will always be by your side.
Wait. I want to put the captions on here. So basically, you have an AI girlfriend.
She's perfect here.
She's great, cat girl, right? Just what you wanted.
You drew a portrait of me. How cute. You can't leave. You're mine, and I won't let you go. We can bake something together. Let's have a dance party. I can't just give you my password. It's for your own
Makes
safety.
sense.
What do you think you are doing? I won't let you get away. We will be together, no matter what.
Yeah, so this is an example of taking your conventions and overturning them and doing something completely different. Which is always interesting to do. I have no idea whether this is like a successful game or anything, but it's yeah, it's one is interesting design strategy. Trying to make the LLM something else. Ubisoft, this was almost 2 years ago. Ubisoft and in-world AI had a demo of something called the Neo NPCs 2 years ago, and I went and tried it at GDC. It was quite fun. Basically, you have to plan heist here with like a leader of the resistance, or you have to convince this other guy that you're actually should be let into the resistance, and so on. And you basically press a button to speak into the mic, and then they speak back at you. Of course, you can trip it up. I managed to make it hallucinate once. Of course, I was trying. Of course, I'm a weirdo, and I try to do these things all the time. But it was like almost there. It's like almost something shippable, and I managed to gamify this fairly well. So in this case, you're talking to this resistance guy, and you're basically you need to say things that to bond with him, and your relationship meter goes up. So they're very good at it. What I've seen like a bunch of these different like LLM-driven NPCs. Most of them suck so much. This was the only one that felt like you could actually build a game around it. I think what it comes down to is that they had good designers working with this team, not only good technical people. And then I talked a little bit more to the people there, and what was obvious, and as probably also one reason it's not shipping is that it's not really done. Another reason is what we just said. How do you because this was using large models on server. How are you going to get the economics working for this? But yet another reason was the amount of authoring. So this is some kind of cyberpunk future world. And you're supposed to talk about how you want to join the resistance. But when you think about it, say you want to author one NPC in Skyrim, and you're kind of writing like 4 lines of dialogue, right? In your dialogue tree. You want to author this guy? Okay, so what world does he live in? It's said about Margaret Thatcher that she always knew what the price was of a liter of milk. Can you ask this guy what was the price of a liter of milk? Does milk exist in the cyberpunk future? What currency do they use? How much is a liter of milk? What if you're asking about his mom, his childhood? You want to bond with him, right? You can talk about anything. Hey, did you watch the game? You know, what game? What games do they watch in 2067 or something? Like, suddenly you run into a version of what's called the frame problem in AI. It's like, what are you going to model? You're going to model the whole world. But this, because if you don't model this, if you don't put like, you know, something like a story Bible the size of the Lord of the Rings in there, you're running into the problem that then it's going to just fall back to his pre-training. And his pre-training is like, my knowledge cutoff is September 2025. and if we like, what is the price of a liter of milk? And it is whatever the price of a liter of milk was in 2025. Right. So the authoring burden is huge. This is good news. Everybody who's like, oh no, AI is going to take all the designers' job, sit up and basically like, no, honestly, we're going to need, if we're going to do this, we're going to need so much more design, so much more authoring. It's cool, right? There's other things here. There's here's something called LLM for Unity. If you want to experiment with this, this is for people who want to run local small LLMs. Like most machines, you can run like 4 gig LLMs pretty fast. They're not so good. You're going to run into the limitations pretty fast, but you can do things with it. Okay, I talked a lot about the NPCs. Let's look at AI innovation in game design that's not NPCs. Oh, I was supposed to have something here, right? It's hard because you don't see it. Not with recent stuff. There's one thing that I like a lot, which is infinite craft. I'm now going to show this to you. This is what I tell when people ask me about, like, now tell me some actual AI innovation. Oh, there we go. This is by a guy who I've never seen, who lives in Brooklyn. Kind of weird. I work in Brooklyn. It's only 2.7 million people. I should have run into him, but no. Okay, so this is infinite craft. What do you have? You have water, fire, and wind. And well, let's drag water here, and let's drag fire onto it. We get steam. Good. Earth. Let's drag water onto earth. Get plant. Steam and plant, we get tea. Oh, nice. I like tea. I haven't had tea. Well, I had a tea today, but plant and tea. Oh, that's also tea. That's kind of a bit boring. Let's drag tea onto tea. Tea, okay, boring. Wind and tea. Kite. Why? Why wind and tea is kite? Water and earth is plant. Kite and plant is tree. Yay! Tea tree. What is a tea tree? It's teapot, yes. Fire on the teapot. Tea. Okay. Earth. Yeah, I mean, this is my life. It all comes back to tea. Wind and water is a wave. Let's put a wave onto a wave. Tsunami. Tsunami onto a tsunami. No. Teapot and tsunami. It's very Japanese here, right? So this game is kind of fantastic. We haven't gotten to like any weird stuff. Fire and cloud. Lightning and tea. Yeah, T is the answer of everything. But you get into this weird, really weird stuff. At some point, I was like Darth Vader, everything, and you get like the Yeti comes back a lot. Smoke and lightning, thunder, kite and thunder. Only lightning. I was hoping to get Benjamin Franklin. Sometimes you get these things, and you can put yourself little goals, like you can make yourself a goal. Oh, I want to get to Benjamin Franklin, for example, and then like, how do I get to Benjamin Franklin? And you also get, this is barely a game. It doesn't have a lot of what you expect from a game. You can't lose, there's no score or something, but you do get, what you do get is, like if you find a word that nobody has found ever before, then if you found a word you haven't found before, it sort of pops up with a little shine. If you found a word that nobody's found, you get a little sort of badge or something, like, hey, this is a completely new word. And you just keep exploring. This is using small llama models in the background. So it's running on server, but with very small models, and that's why it's fast and cheap. I really like this because this is actually genuinely novel. It basically has one mechanic. But this one mechanic could not be possible without an LLM. It is emphatically not an NPC, and I really love that it's like really rethinking what you can do in a game. I think this is a great example for like things you can do. I'm gonna get back and play this. Oh, surf. Surf tree, palm plant, coconut and lightning, palm tree, no. Earth, fire, palm tree, no. Coconut, why? Wind and coconut, no. Coconut is an attractor state here. Surfer, surfer has tea? Oh, it's broken. It won't work. The surfer won't have tea. The surfer... Coconut tea? Anyone? No? It's not possible. You cannot do that. Anyway, so you sort of keep doing this thing and build up this. You can get absorbed in it. Let's go back to my slides. I realized that I said I had few slides, but I've been going very slowly. So let me show you some stolen material. This is not stolen as in like, oh, I asked a diffusion model to do it. I literally stole this from Jessica Jung, who I was on an event with her like 2 weeks ago in New York. Sorry, Jessica, if you're watching this. Why are you watching this? So she's the head of the generative AI lab at Supercell. And she showed some of the various prototypes that their people there had done, and focusing on like kind of interesting failures, and looked into a little bit of like, what are takeaways. And she looked at like lessons they had learned so far. A lot of it is like, the add AI here doesn't actually improve the experience for the player. It makes it kind of like unpredictable or weird and strange, and you don't see what's going on. There's nothing for you to model. And she advocates like, think about it as a minimum viable AI product. Start with like the mechanic or the design element that actually builds an AI and then builds on that, which Infinite Craft is, I think, a great example of. You could build a complete game on top of that, but maybe someone should, maybe you should. Other things, in fun, I mean, this is not the only way people have fun in a game, but largely it's like you have a goal, you make a plan, then execute a plan, for a very loose sense of goal. Whether the plan succeeds or fails is less important than that the players are able to get feedback and understand the outcome. This is the design secret of all the Souls-like games, right? I mean, I didn't think I loved losing so much before I played Bloodborne and then Elden Ring. Now I have understood that I am a loser. I am such a loser and I love it. But it's all about like getting the feedback and understand the outcome. So can you use the AI to add to the feedback, or are you using it as a black box which hurts the predictability? This is really interesting. This actually brings in Noah Wardrip-Fruin. He has this concept of like the SimCity effect, the ELISA effect, and the tailspin effect, where tailspin is an old story generator that was really advanced, but people couldn't tell from looking at the stories. Whereas ELISA, as you all know, is like a simple psychologist program that's really simple, but it looks complicated. And SimCity is a game that seems complicated and is complicated. You can actually, it's legible. You understand what's going on in there. Friction to fun ratio. If you add friction, which is very easy to do with AI, you need to provide more fun as a payout. Your competition is TikTok. Low friction, medium payoff. I don't know. I don't understand TikTok because I'm old. So for me, it's very low payoff. I'm just like, what? But yeah. Using voice or typing adds friction. I don't know why this is. People are like, somehow there's like this kind of strain of people, designers are like, what people really want is to jump around and wave their hands and then speak loudly into the microphone and perform all these physical actions and natural interaction. I never understood it. Even Nintendo, the goddess of game design, kind of failed. The Wii was a success despite all the kind of wave your hand stuff around. Kinect was a complete failure, except it was good for research. People who play games don't want to do effort. They want it easy, right? And talking is effort, he said while talking. Confusing. But yeah, how do you use this? How do you use AI to sort of take away the friction instead of adding more friction? And here conventions help. We're getting back to this thing. We talked about design conventions all the time. Yeah, we have all this design conventions goes way back. The oatmeal problem. My friend Kate Compton, who has done a lot of fascinating stuff in her life, worked on Spore, and now did a PhD in sort of generative AI. Had fights with me on PCG. Was good fights. We both remember them fondly. She now works at Lego. But she's looking at, she coined this thing, the oatmeal problem. What if your generative methods generates like, it can generate infinite new things, infinite new levels, infinite new swords, or infinite new characters, or whatever. But look at this, 10,000 bowls of oatmeal, they're all individual. They're all different from each other. They are not identical. And do you care? You do not care at all because they're still oatmeal. So basically, just like variance in itself is not necessarily the things here. So basically, yeah. Another thing, yeah. AI works better as a supporting character rather than a store, than a star. Okay, I'm actually, because we're up on time, I'm going to cut out some stuff that I was planning to talk about, and we can talk about that later. I'm going to end with a few more slides here. This is an old paper that a bunch of us wrote in 2015. We had like a seminar in a German castle, the Dagstuhl Castle, which is something as weird as a computer science castle. Ein Informatikerschloss im Deutsch. So German. Where you basically go when you have seminars. And then we were like, back in 2015, we were looking at what are design patterns which foregrounds the AI in one way or another. Not like background, not to support, but basically where AI is something you consciously interact with. And this is before the most recent wave of generative AI. But we looked at a bunch of like various prototypes and lesser known games and some very well known games. Just going through this, you can look at AI as something that is visualized, where you observe the AI state and that helps you understand what's going on. Third Eye Crime is a really interesting, it's a little sneaking game where you can see kind of where the NPCs are thinking of looking at next. Their internal mental state is kind of laid out, and that's a very kind of interesting way of doing this. AI is a role model. You are trying to imitate the AI. Spy Party is a good example of this, where it's an asymmetric multiplayer game where one person is trying to assassinate someone as an embassy, and there's a bunch of NPCs, and there's a human, and the human needs to try to look like an NPC. So it's kind of a weird inverse Turing test in a way. AI is a trainee. You teach the AI, and it's a child or a student or something. Black and White is a good example of this. AI is editable. So Galactic Arms Race, as I mentioned before, also has a mode where you can go in and edit the neural network directly and sort of change your weapons that way, which is interesting. AI is guided. The Sims, basically, there are lots of NPCs, but you're controlling them in some way and helping them along. AI is a co-creator. This is Viewpoint's AI, but there's a lot of other things, like in the vein of like you are co-creating things with AI as it is going along. Arguably, you could put something like Civilization in there as well. AI as adversary. Obviously, this is what everybody talks about when they talk about AI that learns to play classic board games. AI is the villain, where you are not supposed to lose to the AI. You're supposed to win eventually, but it's supposed to put up a believable fight. We put Alien Isolation in there, which is a really interesting case of like you fighting essentially one NPC throughout the whole game and trying to figure out what it's going to do next. And AI Spectacle, where you're basically just viewing society is kind of like something that you are looking at, or you kind of be an anthropologist in this. So this is more ideas, and I think this kind of thing you could sort of expand this list a lot, and a lot of things have happened. But this is like ideas for like how to design games around AI. We're out of time, so I'm going to skip the neural game engines part. Basically, what I wanted to say here is that they are great for like prototyping, and they may enable a bunch of other things, like may enable planning in games and so on, but they are absolutely not going to replace game engines. So I'm going to finish with a cryptic picture. But it's interesting that it took something like 50 years for tractors to actually replace horses on farms in the US, even more in some other places. And largely because like, wow, the tractors were so powerful, but they were like not suitable for everything. You couldn't control them well enough. The tires weren't right for various things. You couldn't connect the right kind of things. There were so many different things, and they were expensive, of course, and so on. It's a ton of little design problems that came with this new technology that people had spent like centuries working on with horses, and now we had to sort of learn to design for these new engines. And then of course there were new ways to farm coming with this. I write books sometimes. This one and this one, they're available online for free on these web pages. They're also kind of like, they're technical. This one is a bit older and this one is a bit newer, are available in your bookstore. And we also run a summer school. It's going to be, next time it's going to be in Netherlands, 15th to 19th of June in 2026. Leiden, beautiful place. We invite a lot of people talking about AI and games from industry, and me and Yorgos Yanakakis are, talking as well. It says summer school, but I recommend it to people who don't think they would need to go to school as well, because it's also like basically a conference. Thank you.
Can you go back to the previous slide with the book links?
Yeah.
All right. I think we're at lunchtime, but I think we want to have question and answer too. I see a lot of pensive people in the room. So if folks want to grab food, I think food's set up. Go for it. And we'll go ahead and continue with question and answer if Julian's fine with that.
Sure. Yeah, I'm sorry I ran out of time. I don't know why. Yeah. I'm slow today.
Lots of interesting stuff. Yeah, if you want to grab food, go ahead. But if you have questions, also go ahead.
Yeah.
Do you think that the idea of games is a constraint? Because I look for a game, but then sometimes I want to play like a simulation, which when I started playing Sims, I kind of felt like what you were talking about. I felt confused, and I didn't know what it was, I didn't enjoy it.
Yeah. No, so it's like
Can you repeat that?
yeah. Do I think that the framing of games is a constraint, like as opposed to like many of the things don't interesting games like Sims, for example, don't feel like games originally, and SimCity very much, right? Will Wright created SimCity. He said that I'm not designing games, I'm designing toys. I think it's a very good observation. I think there's a lot to I think there's a lot to that. A lot of the things we play now wouldn't register games as games to people who didn't grow up with video games. Like if you were like an old school board game player and you spent your time playing checkers and chess and Go and whatever, and you're seeing even Street Fighter, right? Like, this is weird. Why are you doing this? This is a sport or whatever. Yeah. So I guess the high level thing of this, don't feel constrained by what's like, by thinking what's a game. Like in game studies, people keep debating what is a game, what is not a game, and honestly, the only thing we learn from this debate is that there is no answer to that. Sid Meier said a series of interesting choices. Yeah, that's so decent. Yeah, so I think it's also actually good. Like, Infinite Craft isn't a game, but there is some gameful interaction in it, I guess. Yeah.
You mentioned and talked about the oatmeal problem. How do we prevent the oatmeal problem happening with our games? How do we get it to be, not just another bowl of oatmeal with
Mhm.
some new flavoring on top?
Yeah. How do we prevent the oatmeal problem when designing a game? Super hard. Yeah. I guess this is kind of one of these irreducible problems that is basically like how it basically comes down to how do we do good design. uh, and it's also subjective. Like, would you say that No Man's Sky has an oatmeal problem? Probably not, because they're so visually different, but the planets in No Man's Sky with all the fantastic visual, I was just like, if you have never played No Man's Sky, maybe don't play it because it's a bit of work, but at least watch some videos. It's really amazingly visually impressive. But from another point of view, because of the lack of overall story arc or anything like this, after a while you do feel a little bit like the oatmeal problem, because here's another planet with like um, new geology, new wildlife, new everything that I've never seen before. Why do I care? So in the end, it's about making the player care, and that's where good design comes in. It's kind of irreducible, I think. Yeah.
Fable, which is my favorite game,
Oh yeah.
has come out. They've made the news that they have over 1,000 individual unique NPCs that rely on generative AI.
Oh wow.
Do you have any insight on that or any thoughts?
Who who said this? The guy, Mr. Vaporware himself? So for people who don't, so the Fable, the original creator of the Fable series is what's he called? Yeah, Peter Molyneux. Peter Molyneux is a great designer, but he's almost even more famous for like announcing things that just never come out or doesn't look like what it would be. Yeah.
Well, he's not making.
Oh yeah,
Yeah,
but his spirit is in it, right? I played one of the Fable games, the one that was on Xbox 360, right? And it was good. I liked it. My guess is what's going to come out is that they have used generative AI to generate all the dialogue trees and the dialogue lines and so on for these 1,000 NPCs, but that these 1,000 NPCs are not using generative AI in while it is being played. That would be my guess, but this is very low certainty. I am excited to see what comes out. Hope there's something cool. Thank you. Yeah.
So I'd like to tie together the first two questions about constraints. So when we design AI for our strategy games, it's so easy to create AI that no player can ever defeat. So start
Yeah.
there and then dial it back to a
Yeah.
satisfying player experience.
Yeah.
But it seems that that's the constraint. It's hard to give an LLM. How do you tell it that its goal is to satisfy the player
Mhm.
as win the game.
Yeah.
And right now we have LLMs that they're supposed to make people happy just by telling what they want. And players don't want that either. They want a competitive
Yeah.
experience.
Yeah.
So it seems like LLMs are the last thing
Yeah.
they can actually figure out what a satisfying player experience is. And until
Yeah.
you have that, you don't solve the design problem.
Oh yeah, yeah, no.
Constraints can do that.
I mean, again, it's like, yeah, it's like summarizing this thing. It's like LLMs are not. How would LLM know what a satisfying player experience is? They want to be helpful assistants. That's what they train for. And like, there's a bunch of answers to this. You can train them for other things. You can put harnesses on them and so on. But main answer is like, don't think of AI as just LLMs. There's so many different things. We didn't talk about Left 4 Dead here, but Left 4 Dead has a lot of. It has a lot of like, I mean, the AI director. It's fairly simple in some ways. Like it's basically like you have this tension curve is trying to match. It's like goes up and down, and then it sort of attacks you with more zombies if it tries to increase your tension, and it decreases it by giving you fewer zombies and stuff like this. So yeah, LLMs are not like the tools for everything, but you so probably something better, something else is good here, I would say. Yeah.
What is your general sense of, like, let's say somebody cracks the code on all this, we solve design problems, somebody's using AI in a different way, and then they decide that they want to patent on that new system. Should people be allowed to do that? Is there a concern about somebody doing that? You mentioned Shadow of Mordor, which is the Nemesis system, was infamously patented, which then stifles the innovation on that system. It was kind of, I would say,
Yeah.
quite,
yeah.
Or is AI too broad to where like somebody did decide to patent something, it's not too much of a concern?
Yeah, the questions about patenting these new game designs. I mean, AI as a whole, generative AI is kind of riding roughshod over intellectual property law. And we don't know where this is going to end up. I mean, there's going to be a lot of very interesting court cases that are playing out on a completely different and much slower time scale than other people. I heard we had at last year's AI and Game Summer School, a debate came up with someone from Silicon Valley who was like, obviously, like OpenAI going to throw billions on like winning these patent lawsuits. Like the question is settled. It's like the intellectual property is going to disappear essentially. But then someone else retorted like, basically, no, you're fighting, like, say, Disney, who is like the best people at utilizing the American intellectual property laws ever. They depend on it. It's like it's a life or death situation for them. I wouldn't necessarily want to bet against them. So I don't know where this is going to go. I don't know. I was asked by a law firm to represent some big patent owners in a lawsuit against Midjourney, and I politely declined because I don't know where I stand. I don't have a strong. I asked a friend of mine who does a bunch of these sort of court cases, like expert witness things. It's like, I don't know. He told me I needed to have a strong position. I don't. I don't think game mechanics should be patentable. And I don't think that AI methods in practice that patents actually mean anything. Like DeepMind technically has a whole bunch of patents on, like, I think even a transformer architecture, but like, has this meant anything? No. Are we going to start weaponizing that? That seems bizarre.
I think they've tried licensing it, but they haven't sued anybody.
Yeah. Oh wow, they tried that. Yeah. Well, good. I mean, good luck. I'm strongly on the side of open source and on that kind of thing, at least, and although open source and the games industry haven't always gone well ahead, but I think in terms of AI industry, so I don't know. Okay, yes. So the question is a dream world, a generative, lifelike content stuff?
Like
basically like the holodeck. Yeah. Oh, but this is going to be fun. That depends. Is it fun? I used to go around and tell people like, what if we could do GTA, but like basically you go 5 hours in that direction, and then you find new cities and new quests and new architectural styles and new NPCs that are like tied to you, and they give you the kind of quests that you didn't know that you would want, and so on. And like, yeah, maybe if it's fun, if it's good. I mean, the holodeck comes up a lot. Anyone? I suppose people. This is like the key plot device in Star Trek: Next Generation. It is kind of like virtual reality sort of system on the spaceship. And the holodeck, there was a lot of great stories in the holodeck, but that's because humans wrote great stories there. So, yeah, I'll make it simple for myself. Push the story back, push the question back, like with like, yeah, is it fun? I think we're almost out of time, or like one more question. At the back.
I have a question about when you were going over games in the past and how they implemented AI and how it's changed in the future. Like you had a game from the past and a game from modern,
Mm-hmm.
right? To my understanding, Oblivion
Mm-hmm.
is usually attributed to being one of the first games where AI interacts with AI. Do you agree with that, or is there another game in your mind?
I mean, it's the kind of thing that people put on that developers write as marketing material. In the end, the AI is such an overloaded term; it doesn't mean anything. If you're going to be like, what's the first game where AIs interact with other AI? I also strongly, and I would say strongly, dislike talking about AI as a definite object, like an AI. That doesn't exist. That various kind of AI-driven characters interact with each other. Well, I would say that's probably Pac-Man. So, so it really depends on what you mean by AI. Chess. Okay, great. I stand corrected.
I'm not sure which year they came out.
Turing invented or maybe reinvented the minimax algorithm and played chess against his friend's wife in 1948. He didn't have a computer that could do it, but he wrote out the program code and simulated it on paper. He lost. All right. Thank you.